Lacoste. Before watching this pencast, please watch the Word Problems pencast that explains the 4 problem-solving steps. Now that we understand the 4 problem-solving steps, let's proceed with the problem. The length of a rectangle is 12 inches and its perimeter is 6 times its width. What is the width of the rectangle? Okay, so let's follow the 4 problem-solving steps. The first is step 1, which says, read and if necessary, reread the problem. Identify the quantities in the problem, assign a variable, and write the other quantities in terms of that variable. Alright, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's reread the problem one more time. We're dealing with a rectangle, and apparently its length is 12 inches. What we don't know is the perimeter or the width, but we're told that the perimeter is 6 times the width. We're asked to find the width of the rectangle. Okay, so the quantities in this problem are the length, which is given, 12 inches, the width, and the perimeter. Remember that quantities are things of significance in the problem that can be represented with a number. So the first thing we want to do here is find out what is the question asking and assign a variable. Well, the last sentence of the problem says, what is the width of the rectangle? So that's going to be our variable. We'll assign that the variable w, since width starts with w. So right here where it says assign a variable, we're going to go ahead and do that, and we'll say that w is defined as, that's what this symbol means, the colon followed by the equal sign, w is defined as the width of the rectangle. Now we want to write other quantities involved in this problem in terms of that width if we can, remembering that sometimes the information will be given to us. So one of the other quantities in this problem is the length. So we'll use L to represent length of the rectangle. And that was given to us. We know that that's 12 inches. Another quantity in this problem is the perimeter. We'll use P for perimeter. So P colon equal sign perimeter of the rectangle. And now we want to write quantities in terms of that variable. The length was given. The perimeter, however, is not. That's one of the things that is an unknown to us. But we are given enough information to write the perimeter in terms of our variable, which in this case is w, the width. If we look at the problem very carefully, we find that it says its perimeter is 6 times its width. We want to translate that sentence, which is a very important skill when solving a word problem. So its perimeter, that's represented by P, is, that word in English is translated to the equal sign, 6 times its width. That would be the number 6 multiplied by the width. We're representing the width with w. So we have 6 times w, which is 6w. Okay, so we've completed step 1. We assigned a variable, w, the width, and we wrote the other quantities in the problem in terms of that variable. Let's move on to step 2. Step 2 says, refer to known formulas, sketch a diagram, and write an equation. Well, this problem involves a rectangle, and specifically it involves its perimeter. So the known formula that we would like to refer to in this case is the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle. Remember that perimeter is a measure of the lengths of the sides of a geometric shape. So a rectangle has both a length and a width. Actually, it has 2 instances of each. What defines a rectangle is that the lengths are opposite one another and the widths are opposite of one another. There are 2 of each. So if we wanted to calculate the perimeter, we would simply add up all of the lengths of the sides. So the perimeter of a rectangle is length plus width plus length plus width. Combining like terms gives us the formula. P for perimeter is equal to 2w plus 2l. That's twice the width plus twice the length. Okay, so we've identified our known formulas. Now we want to sketch a diagram. So let's draw a rectangle. Remember that a rectangle has nothing but right angles in it. I'll draw the right angles in here. A right angle is an angle that is 90 degrees. That means it takes a 90-degree turn in forming the corner of our rectangle. It does not matter which side you first label the length or width, but once you've chosen one of the sides, all of the other sides are then determined. So for example, if we call this down here the length, then the opposite side is also the length. And if that's the length, then this one over here must be the width, and therefore this one must also be the width. Now in this problem we are given the length. The length is given to us as 12 inches, so let's go ahead and label that. So this is 12 inches, and this is 12 inches. The width is an unknown to us. We don't know what that is, so we're going to leave that as a question mark on our diagram. We also know the perimeter is equal to 6 times the width, so we'll remind ourselves of that. So P is equal to 6W, L is equal to 12 inches, and the formula for perimeter is 2W plus 2L. Okay, so we've drawn a diagram. The last thing to do is write an equation. Often the equation that you write comes from the known formula. So in this particular instance, our known formula was P equals 2W plus 2L. What we'd like to do is get one single equation, and we only want one variable in that equation, and that is our unknown. If you look back to step 1, our unknown, our variable for this problem, was W, the width of the rectangle. So we would like to replace all of the parts of our known formula so that they include only W's or numbers. So let's see if we can do that. So starting with P is equal to 2W plus 2L, we know that the perimeter P is actually equal to 6W. So let's rewrite this formula and make substitutions. Instead of P, we're going to write this as 6W. We can leave 2W as it is, because remember, our goal here is to get an equation with only W in it. And then we'll add twice the length. Well, the length we know is 12 inches. Okay? So, with that, we have now completed step 2. We referred to known formulas. The perimeter of a rectangle is twice the width plus twice the length. We sketched a diagram, and we labeled our diagram with the information that we were given. And finally, we wrote an equation. Let's move on to step 3. Step 3 is solve the equation. If you can get through step 1 and step 2 in a word problem, usually you're home free from here. Students tend to have a lot of practice at solving equations. Setting up equations, that's a bit more challenging of a task, and they get less practice at it. So I'm hoping you'll find that this particular pencast is helpful in that regard. So, step 3 is solve the equation and use the solution to answer the question asked, including any needed units. So I've rewritten the equation that we got at the end of step 2, 6W equals 2W plus 2 times 12 inches. So let's go ahead and solve that. The first thing I'd like to do is go ahead and multiply the 2 and the 12 inches. Remember that you can treat units just like they were variables. So we've got 6W is equal to 2W plus the 2 and the 12 and the inches are all in effect being multiplied together, so that's going to give us 24 inches. Our goal is to solve for W. That means we have to isolate it. We want to get all of our variables together, so let's move all of our W's to the left side. To do that, we need to get rid of the W on the right side. That 2W is being added to 24 inches. To get rid of it, let's subtract. So we'll subtract 2W from both sides of the equation. The addition property of equality tells us that as long as we add or subtract the same thing to both sides of an equation, the equation stays true. So on the left now we have 4W. On the right we have 0 plus 24 inches, which is just 24 inches. Now we'll use the multiplication property of equality, which says that we can multiply or divide both sides of an equation by the same number, and if we do, the equation stays true. So we have 4W and we have 24 inches. What's the 4 doing to the W? Multiplying. How do we undo multiplication? Division. So we want to divide both sides of this equation by the coefficient of the variable, which in this case is 4. When we do that, we get W by itself, because 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 1 times W is W. 24 inches divided by 4 gives us 6 inches. We've solved the equation. The last part of step 3 is use the solution to answer the question asked, including any needed units. Well, this question asked, what is the width of the rectangle? So we would write the width of the rectangle remember, we used W to represent the width of the rectangle. So the width of the rectangle is 6 inches. And with that, we've completed step 3. Step 4 is a very important part of any word problem exercise because you always want to make sure that your answer is both correct and reasonable. The trick to step 4 is that at this point, now that you have all of the numbers, all you want to use are numbers to check your answer. So, let's go ahead and identify what numbers we've got. So step 4, check your answer. Perform a reality check. Ask yourself, is my answer reasonable? We determined that the width is 6 inches. We were given that the length is 12 inches. We weren't given the perimeter, so let's go ahead and calculate it. Using our formula again, P equals 2W plus 2L. That gives us that P is equal to 2 times the width, 6 inches, plus 2 times the length, 12 inches. When we multiply, this gives us that the perimeter P is equal to 12 inches plus 24 inches. Treating units as variables and combining like terms, this gives us that P is equal to 36 inches. Okay, so now we have numbers to represent all of the quantities we identified in step 1 for this problem. The only thing to do now is to make sure that those numbers satisfy the conditions stated. We know that the length of the rectangle is 12 inches. That was given to us. The other element we need to check is the perimeter 6 times the width? The problem told us it is, so let's make sure that our answer makes sure that that's true. So we want to know, is the perimeter 6 times the width? The perimeter is 36 inches. Is that equal to, we'll use this special symbol, it's an equal sign with a question mark on top of it. That's our way of writing, are these things equal? We'd like to find that out. So, 36 inches. Is that equal to 6 times the width? So 6 times the width would be 6 times 6 inches. So on the left-hand side we have 36 inches, and that does equal the right-hand side, which is also 36 inches. Therefore, the answer checks and is reasonable. Now, performing step 4, checking your answer, is a very important step. It lets you know that you've got the correct answer. However, there's one caution. At this point, we have 36 inches equals 36 inches. You might be tempted to say that the answer is 36 inches, but that's not the case. Remember what the question was asking. What is the width of the rectangle? The width of the rectangle, W, is 6 inches. Use that information to answer the question, either by selecting the correct multiple choice answer or putting a circle around your answer if it was a free response question. Alright, that concludes this problem. I hope you found this information helpful, and I look forward to providing more of these pencasts for you as time goes by. Thanks for watching.